Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? Have you ever felt as though everything was falling apart and all hope seemed lost? There is an ancient man who endured these same trials and found a path to greatness. This is the story of Joseph, one of the most enigmatic and surprising figures in the Bible. Joseph was not just an ordinary man. His life was filled with extraordinary events, of rises and falls, of betrayals and triumphs. And hidden in these events are lessons that go beyond a simple story. Lessons that speak to us even today, buried in the folds of time and revealed only to those willing to listen. Today, we'll uncover 7 life lessons from Joseph, truths that no one has ever told you. These lessons aren't just for those who love biblical stories, but for anyone seeking strength, hope, and guidance through life's challenges. And each lesson contains a powerful message, inviting you to see life from a new perspective. Accepting envy and betrayal. Joseph is the beloved son of Jacob, cherished and protected, with a colorful robe symbolizing his special place in the family. But this privilege stirs a deep envy in his brothers. They cannot stand to see him so favored, and driven by jealousy, they decide to get rid of him. Imagine Joseph's pain and confusion. Betrayed by the people he loved most, sold into slavery by those who should have protected him. It's one of the deepest wounds a person can suffer. But Joseph doesn't let this betrayal destroy him. This first lesson teaches us a painful but powerful truth. Sometimes, betrayal and envy come from those closest to us, but what truly matters is how we choose to respond. Joseph doesn't let envy and betrayal define his worth. He accepts his fate and begins a journey of growth that will take him far. We may not always avoid the betrayal or envy of others, but we can decide not to let these wounds define us. Like Joseph, we can transform pain into a silent strength that drives us to seek a greater life. Joseph's first lesson is clear. Accept betrayal as an opportunity for growth, not as a limitation to our identity. Resisting temptation. After being sold into slavery, Joseph is taken to Egypt and ends up in the house of Potiphar, one of the most powerful men in the country. Joseph works hard and earns his master's trust, becoming responsible for the entire household. But peace doesn't last long. Potiphar's wife tries to seduce him. Joseph finds himself faced with a dangerous temptation. He could have given in, escaping his hardships or securing privileges, but he chooses to remain faithful to his principles and rejects Potiphar's wife's advances, fully aware of the consequences he might face. This lesson shows us the value of inner strength and integrity. Even when temptation seems to offer relief or temporary gain, Joseph demonstrates that preserving one's dignity has an immeasurable worth. His choice to resist temptation leads him to imprisonment, but it preserves his integrity and prepares him for an even greater future. Resisting temptation requires a strength that goes beyond immediate benefits. Joseph teaches us that integrity, even in the hardest situations, is what ultimately defines and elevates us. Joseph's second lesson is simple yet powerful. Stay true to yourself, even when circumstances tempt you to take shortcuts. Keeping hope alive in prison. After resisting temptation, Joseph is falsely accused by Potiphar's wife and thrown into prison. He finds himself in an even worse situation, abandoned and with no way out, despite his innocence. Any hope might seem lost, but Joseph refuses to give up. Instead of succumbing to despair, Joseph chooses to hold on to hope. Even in prison, he maintains his faith and continues to live with dignity and strength. earning the respect of other prisoners and guards. This lesson teaches us that even in the darkest circumstances, we can find light if we choose not to give up. Joseph shows us that hope is not just an emotional state, but an active choice. In prison, he continues to believe in a better future, without being crushed by the injustices he faces. Joseph reminds us that hope is a powerful force, even when everything around us seems to collapse. It's what allows us to survive the hardest moments and to find meaning in suffering. Joseph's third lesson is clear. Even in the worst circumstances, hope is a guide that keeps us from being completely lost. The power of humility. During his time in prison, Joseph stands out for a rare quality: humility. When some fellow inmates have troubling dreams, Joseph doesn't hesitate to help, interpreting their dreams and bringing a glimmer of hope to their difficult situation. But it is when he's called before Pharaoh that Joseph reveals the full power of humility. Speaking to Pharaoh, the most powerful man in Egypt, Joseph takes no credit for himself, but attributes his ability to interpret dreams to God. This lesson teaches us that humility is not just modesty, it's the ability to recognize that our gifts are opportunities to serve others. Joseph doesn't seek to use his talents for personal gain. Instead, he uses them to bring hope, interpret Pharaoh's dream, and prepare Egypt for a severe famine. Humility is a quiet strength, allowing us to understand that our greatness is measured not by our successes alone, but by how willing we are to serve others. Joseph shows us that the more humble we are, the more we can become instruments of something greater than ourselves. Joseph's fourth lesson is this: the power of humility lies in serving, not seeking recognition, but aiming to do good. Forgiving the past. Years after being sold into slavery, Joseph has risen to power in Egypt. He has become Pharaoh's trusted advisor and has saved the country from famine. But in this moment of triumph, he comes face to face with his brothers, the same brothers who betrayed and abandoned him. His brothers don't recognize him, and Joseph has every right to seek revenge for the pain they caused him. But instead, he chooses a different path: forgiveness. He reveals his identity, weeps with them, and reassures them, offering them food and shelter. This lesson teaches us that forgiveness is not a sign of weakness, but of strength and healing. For Joseph, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting the pain. It means transforming it into an opportunity for reconciliation. He lets go of his resentment, allowing himself and his brothers to find a new path. Joseph shows us that forgiveness frees not only others, but also ourselves from the weight of the past. Forgiveness allows us not to be prisoners of our wounds and to find peace, even when the pain runs deep. Joseph's fifth lesson is powerful. Forgiving the past frees us and enables us to build a future without resentment. Using your abilities to serve. After interpreting Pharaoh's dreams and foreseeing the famine, Joseph is appointed to oversee all of Egypt. His task is to prepare the nation for the 7 years of hardship ahead. It's a moment of great responsibility, and Joseph embraces it with humility and determination, using his abilities to protect and serve the people. Joseph doesn't just enjoy his power, he uses his position to organize food reserves and help anyone in need. His efforts not only save thousands of lives, but also give purpose to his journey through suffering and the trials he endured. This lesson teaches us that our gifts and abilities are meant to be tools for the good of others. Joseph shows us that when we use our talents in service of a greater purpose, we find meaning and fulfillment in our lives. Using our abilities is not merely a matter of personal ambition. It's a way to make a positive impact on others. Joseph demonstrates that when we use our gifts to serve, even success takes on a deeper significance. Joseph's sixth lesson is clear. Our gifts hold the greatest value when we use them to serve and uplift those around us. Recognizing God's plan. After everything he has endured, betrayal, imprisonment, power, and finally, reconciliation, Joseph looks back on his life and recognizes something extraordinary. Speaking to his brothers, he says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Joseph understands that all the trials, pain, and hardships were not random events, but part of a larger plan. Every moment of suffering prepared him for the role he would play in saving thousands. This final lesson teaches us that, even when we don't understand the reasons behind our struggles, there is often a hidden purpose. Joseph shows us that we can view our lives as part of a greater divine plan, one that can bring about good even through difficult times. Recognizing God's plan doesn't mean having all the answers, but having the faith that each step, even the hardest, has meaning. Joseph reminds us that we can find peace and purpose by embracing the mystery of our existence. Joseph's seventh and final lesson is profound. Seeing life as part of a divine plan allows us to find serenity, even in our greatest challenges. Joseph's story is a powerful and complex journey that goes beyond betrayal, suffering, and victory. It teaches us that true strength does not lie in escaping challenges, but in transforming them into life lessons. These 7 lessons remind us that, like Joseph, we can face every challenge with faith, integrity, and hope. The Bible, with its stories and teachings, is an endless source of wisdom, capable of guiding us through our darkest moments and giving us the strength to build a meaningful life. No matter where we come from or what we've been through, Joseph's lessons invite us to see every experience as an opportunity for growth. His story shows us that even the hardest trials can reveal a greater purpose. We'll continue exploring more powerful stories from the Bible, discovering together how they can inspire us to live with more faith and wisdom.